Salut, je m'appelle. Enchanté. In French or Francais, that will be bonjour, a greeting during the day, and bonsoir, a greeting during the evening. Welcome, bienvenue, to another New Manchester voice recording podcast. This is a request video from a guy who watches the videos on this channel. He's autistic. I'm not going to say his name. So I'm going to give him what he wants. I don't know about the rest of you if you are interested in this or not. So if you don't want to watch this video, just don't watch it. Well, actually, it's not a video, it's a voice recording. Okay. I'm on the Quota site online, and I'm on my smartphone. And I'm going to be reading a post titled, "Why is the United States so religious?" Religion is on constant display here in America. It's everywhere. Well, sort of. You know, it's at high school football games. It's during Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's religion is talked about openly. In some parts of America that is religious. You know, some parts of America is religious, some parts of it isn't. Before I read this post and give my thoughts, I just want to tell all of you that I'm not an atheist. Please don't have this mindset in thinking that I'm an atheist and I'm against religion. I'm not. I'm not against it. But anyway, I'm not going to worry about what anybody thinks. So I'm just giving you a heads up on what I just said to all of you. Okay, let me get into this. Why is the United States so religious? And this post is from Barry Hampty, a lifelong atheist, nearly 90 years old, child of a Christian family. Wording of the question when I was asked to answer, why is the United States so religious? And it reads as follows. The British colonists in America were a home to religious extremists who wanted a place where they could make their version of religious beliefs the state religion. In spite of what you may have learned in 4th grade, they were not promoters of religious freedom. In most cases, they wanted nothing to do with it. They were proponents of their beliefs over all others. The fact that the religion of choice changed from colony to colony is irrelevant. Collectively, these were religious zealots. Think about what it would take to pack up the family, get on a ship to a new and relatively unexplored land, prepared to live in the wilderness. These were people of strong religious conviction, even if they were wrong. The other factor has been the relative isolation of America from the other nations of the world. Until very recently, Americans did not come in contact with a lot of people with different languages, customs, and beliefs, except during a war. So most Americans sort of assume that the way things were in their local area is the way things were everywhere, as well as the way things were meant to be. It is only in the last 75 years or so that the stranglehold religion, Christianity, has had on Americans has been weakened. Here's another post on religion here on Quota from someone else. I'm not going to say their name, but I'm going to read their post. There are regional cultural differences in the United States. The Northwest, Washington, and Oregon does not have a very high rate of religious affiliation or practice. However, the Southeast, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, etc. does. In the Southeast, church membership plays an important socializing function. People label themselves according to which church they attend. I also think that having faith in typically in Protestant interpretation of God is associated with Southern pride. Other things that Southerners tend to identify with culturally are the Southern accent, football, Southern foods, and the idea of minors using ma'am and sir when talking to adults. That's also here in Texas too. African Americans are a significant minority group in the Southeast. In the African American community, pastors are seen as indispensable male authority figures. Churches are important social, political, and even artistic centers. Martin Luther King Jr. was a preacher. Whitney Houston and Stevie Wonder sang in church when they were young. And additionally, I think that the following came into play. In the 1950s, politicians convinced the public that a good way to fight against communist influences was by promoting religion in public life. President Eisenhower signed a bill that inserted the phrase "under God" into the Pledge of Allegiance. In the late 1960s, sources of young people liberated themselves from the tropes of 1950s life. Some experimented with drugs. Some tried religion. Religion experimentation was geared towards finding something different in the mainline experiences they had growing up. This could mean Eastern religious or complementary evangelical favors of Christianity. In the late 1970s, religious activists coincided politically, encouraging like-minded people to vote. They played a key role in electing Ronald Reagan in 1980. Collectively, these people came to be known as the religious right. Okay, here's another post from Ernest W. Adams, and this is the last one. A number of early colonists in North America were Puritans, Quakers, or members of other religious minorities who wanted to go someplace where they wouldn't have to pay tithes to the Church of England. In those days, you had to pay tithes to the established church, even if you were a member of another church, which really annoyed them. The United States' freedom of religion allowed all sorts of funny branches of Christianity to pop up, Mormons, and Christian Scientists and others. More of them came over from Europe in later waves of immigration. Irish Catholics, Amish, Emirs and Hamonas, and French Protestants called Huguenots, and so on. Then in the late 19th and early 20th century, large numbers of Jews came from Eastern Europe. The reasons there's so much more religion in the USA compared with, say, Europe, is that so many people came there specifically for religious freedom. And that explains why the United States is such a uberly religious country. This country is super, super, super religious. After going overseas, to countries in Europe and, being exposed to Winston Wu and people from other countries online, I just see America for what it is. I mean, these people, foreign countries, people from other countries just God smacked me. They just God smacked me to show me America, show me what America is. Make me see America for what it is. And I'm no stranger to going to church. I went to church when I was younger. I went to church when I was younger to up until being an adult. And I haven't gone as of late. It's Sunday, by the way. Yeah. There's one thing that stands out to me here in the United States when it comes to going to church. People from different races, like for instance, you go to a church and you see nothing but white people there. Then you go to another church, you see a church that has nothing but black people. It's just like segregation when it comes to religion. Why is that? Like that's what stands out to me. Why is it that people from different races go to separate churches and they don't go to the same church together? I don't get that. I mean, if you're a Christian, if you say you love everybody, then why come you love people from your own race and you don't love people who aren't from your race? That's something I just don't understand. Churches all over America, I ain't gonna say that they're all bad, but you got some good churches, you got some bad churches. The bad churches are churches that are filled to the brim with the most evil people known to man. I'm gonna talk about the evil people and from the evil churches. You got these types of churches where people bicker and argue and get into it with one another. You got people who never socialize with each other. They're very antisocial and cold. I went to churches like that, an AME church. I went to an AME church somewhere in Texas, Pittsburgh, Texas, and the people there were very antisocial. They were very cold. And it's from like the young people there. Like the young people didn't want to talk to one another, and they want to talk to me or anyone else at church. And this was weird. Like I remember my dad went to this McDonald's to order some breakfast. I went there. We all went there to buy some breakfast. My mom, my sister, my dad, and myself. And there was this black girl at the drive-through, and my dad recognized her, and she didn't recognize my dad because my dad is the pastor of a church that she goes to. And she didn't say, "Hi, how you doing, Reverend so-and-so?" or nothing. Well, my dad's was the pastor of that church. And she just didn't say anything. She didn't ask them like how he was doing. "Hey, how you doing, Reverend so-and-so?" or nothing. She just acted like my dad was just another person. Like he just didn't exist. Like he didn't exist. Like she acted like she didn't know him, but she did. It was just kind of bizarre. It was strange. And the other young people in the church were like this too. I remember I extended my hand out to shake hands with this black girl. That was something I didn't do. That was wrong. You don't do that towards a woman. But when I extended my hand out, she just slapped it and just ran away. Before she slapped it, she acted like all scared and all fearful of me, and she just slapped my hand and just walked away. And I told my dad about this. My dad said this in a very fucked up way. "Richard, you're a young man. You're a young man. That's how it is. That's how it is." No, that's not how it is. That's kind of weird. That's not right. It's kind of messed up. It was a church where people were ice cold and antisocial. The young people there never talked to one another, and they never talked to me and everybody else who weren't their age. I also remember that my dad was pastor of this church in Marshall, Texas. I'm not going to say the name of this church. There was this black guy there. He was very, very racist. He hated white people. And when he heard about a church program that was going to happen at the church, like later on Sunday, like later on a Sunday after morning worship, he heard about some white people going to come to the church. He just made excuses with my dad and just made excuses all the time, due to the fact that this black man, who was a member of the church, hated white people. He was racist. I don't know if this is religious related, but I'm going to say this. I remember I went to my uncle's funeral, and I was wearing a mask, because of COVID-19, because I had to wear a mask. I wore a mask, and there was this old black man there. He was really old, and he was supposed to be my cousin, and he was related to me. I was sweating because I wore the mask, and it was hot. And this was kind of odd and kind of disgusting. This old man comes walking up to me. He's my cousin. A fat, overweight black man with gray hair. He took his hand. He ran his head across my forehead because there was sweat on my forehead. He ran his hand across my forehead over the sweat on my forehead because I was sweating because I was wearing a mask. It was hot that day, and it was summer. After he did it, he turned his hand over and looked at the sweat on his hand. He looked at the sweat the sweat that came off my forehead and was on his hand. He turned to look at it after he ran his hand across my forehead. He looked at it and said, "Yep, he's like his father. Yep, he's like his father." That's kind of odd and kind of disgusting too. I remember going to this church every Sunday. It was this AME church in Texarkana. Well, Texarkana is a city in northeastern Texas and southwestern Arkansas. It's basically a city that's sitting on the border or state line between Texas and Arkansas. That divides the city in two. That has like two Texarkanas, not just one. So you have Texarkana, Texas, and Texarkana, Arkansas. This AME church that I went to in Texarkana was in Texarkana, Texas. And this church, it was an AME church, and the people there were pretty cool. They were very sociable, but all in all, they were like evil. They were bickering. They always get into one another. According to my mother, there's a lot of devils in the church. There's a lot of devils in the church. Yeah. These people weren't good people, but they were cool people. They were sociable. They were nice. But deep down inside, some of them were just weren't good people. Some of them, not all of them. And I remember this guy who I used to talk to. He was a preacher, sort of. He wasn't. I hope YouTube doesn't take this video down. I heard about him having sex with an underage girl, and the adults found out about it, and one of them said this. I think the one was a father. This happened in another church, and he comes to the church in Texarkana to preach time to time, and having sex with a minor. He did this in another church, another AME church, and the people there called him a devil. They called him evil. And they think they wanted to kill him because he had sex with an underage girl. Actually, he got that girl pregnant after he had sex with her. And you have pedophiles in churches here in America. And you do. I seen some of them. I seen some of them, And my dad was part of this AME church circuit where he was pastor of all these churches here in Texas, just the eastern part of Texas. And I seen a white man who was a pedophile. He did something to children, and he talked to my dad about what he did. He was a white guy. You got stuff like that going on in the church, that's just wrong, and that just kind of messed up. Then you got these conservative people, conservative politicians, conservative Americans who are fascists pretending to be Christians. And they believe in, taking rights away from people, like women don't have a right to an abortion, transgender people are being treated like crap, voter suppression, you name it. And they're doing all this in in the name of God and Jesus. You know, and look at these people. These people are just basically hypocrites. You want to sit there and be, you want to sit there and present yourself as good people because you guys are Christians and you go to church and you believe in God and you pray and somehow you're a wonderful person. But deep down inside, you guys, those people are hypocrites and they're full of it and they're evil. Somehow in their logic, they do bad things here in the US for a lot of Americans, and the things that they do is okay in the eyes of God. Like, it just doesn't make any sense and it's not right. I got nothing against religion. You know, it can be a good thing. If you're a good person, if you use it for good, to do good, you're doing the right thing. But if you're a fascist slash evil person and you use it to do wrong, then you're wrong. Period. There's countries in Europe, they're not super religious like here in the States. And you got Canada, a country that's north of the US. They're not super religious and they don't run around and talk about religion openly. And they don't have religious billboards along their highways. Period. They don't talk about it because their government and their country is wrapped in religion, and their head of state, their monarch, King Charles III, is the head of a church. So, there's no need for them to talk about religion, and got a whip of some of the Canadians, and they say that, we're just frightened that you say you're a good person because you go to church. And are you a good person? We don't know if you're a good person, and that's just shocking. Yeah, I know where they're coming from. I don't go around and talk about religion, and I don't. And I don't force religion beliefs down people's throats, and that's something that goes on and on here in the US. Religious people, the fascists, just force their religious beliefs down people's throats. And also the ones who do wrong and use religion as just a front to cover up the wrong things, the bad things that they do, and all the hypocritical things that they say. So that's all I gotta say in this voice recording. All right. Thank you for listening. Au revoir.